How do we keep our glasses clean so we can not get sick from the water we drink? We wash them, we dry them, we make sure we don't leave anything in them that shouldn't be in them. But the same way, how do we keep ourselves clean before God? Well, we're going to learn in 2 Chronicles 14 and 15 today about King Asa and what he did in a kingdom that was kind of having difficulty staying sanctified and pure before the one true God. And we're going to learn today how we can keep ourselves clean before God. Good morning, I'm Pastor Rini. Welcome to 747 Morning Inspiration. Let me begin in 2 Chronicles chapter 14. And first of all, look at how King Asa started off on the right foot when he became king. He immediately began to remove the false gods in the kingdom. He says, Abijah slept with his fathers. They buried him in the city of David. And Asa, his son, reigned in his place. In his days, the land had rest for 10 years. And Asa did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God. He took away the foreign altars and the high places, and broke down the pillars, and cut down the Asherim. The Asherim, by the way, were like totem poles, ancient totem poles that were carved to represent these false gods. And commanded Judah to seek the Lord, the God their fathers, and to keep the law and commandment. He also took out of all the cities of Judah the high places and the incense altars, and the kingdom had rest unto him. So first thing he does is say, okay, what are the things we are doing that are a reproach to God, that are anti God, that are against the worship of the one true God? So he first started on the outskirts, right? What do we have that represents false deities, false worship? And he began to work on the top level items. So he started there, very surface level, but top level items. And what are the things that we're worshiping or doing that are obviously against the one true living God? And when he did that, people began to respect him and he had peace. And during that time of peace, he didn't begin to make himself even wealthier and to try to gain a lot for himself. He didn't become a selfish ruler. He instead took this peace and he invested heavily in his community. It says in verse 6, he built fortified cities, towers, gates, bars, an army, and from Judah and Benjamin. So he took all this peace and he took the prosperity of the nation, and instead of making himself more wealthy, he reinvested it in the security of his nation. So he was practicing a attitude of service, of selflessness, like Jesus did where he came as a king, and Jesus said, I didn't come as a king to be served, but to serve. So Asa understood this, and during the time of peace, he reinvested the security of his city and putting up barriers of protection and an army. But during that time, as in all times, there is opposition that comes against him or comes against us. Zerah, the Ethiopian, came out against them with an army of 1,000,000 men, 4 times larger than what Asa had, and 300 chariots. So he's in a place where he is going to be easily defeated by the Ethiopians because he had nowhere near enough people to defend against him. So he does what righteous people do. He first of all goes to God and he asks God for help. We, especially in first world countries, because of our finances and because of our access to things, government and police and healthcare, we go to everybody else first. And then when we have no options left, we go to God, we go to prayer. Asa did just the opposite. It says in verse 11, Asa cried to the Lord his God, O Lord, there is none like you to help between the mighty and the weak. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rely on you, and in your name we have come against the multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Let not man prevail against you. So the Lord defeated the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. This is something that if we ever got the hang of this, and this was part of our daily discipline, we would remove from our lives so much anxiety. When people have problem with their finances, they go to the bank first, or the credit card first, or a relative first. They don't go to God first. And if you don't go to God first, you exhaust your resources, get yourself in a lot of debt when God could have delivered you from the very beginning. When people have struggles in relationships and marriage, right? They argue with each other. They pick sides with their friends. They tell people about their problems. But do they go before God first? I will tell you, Christy and I, married young, 19 years old. I came from a high-intensity Italian family. And she came from a blended family, and we both had a lot of issues. And man, we could fight. Boy, we had a lot of energy to fight. Either we were making love or fighting, one of the two. But we both were Christians, and you know what we'd do? When we were fighting, we'd get on our knees because we knew we weren't going to settle it because we had enough energy to go at it for several days with who's really right. But what would happen is we'd drop to our knees and we'd say, God, I love my wife. God, I love my husband, even though I can't stand looking at him right now. Please give us wisdom. Jesus, help us. And so here's two people looking up to Jesus, and then Jesus comes back to these two people and he helps us. So if you go vertical first to God, he heals your heart so you can go horizontal to resolve relationships. It's for everything. Health, pray first. Finances, pray first. Relationship, pray first. Guidance, pray first. And then he resolves the horizontal issue. So he did that, and God delivered him from a mighty army that was much greater than him. And then he goes one step further. He gets a prophecy from Azariah, the son of Oded, in verse 15, and he encourages him. He says to him, the Lord is with you while you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. For a long time, Israel was without the one true God, and without a teaching priest, and without law. But when in their distress they turned to the Lord, their God of Israel, sought him, and he was found by them. So he was encouraged by the prophet, the shepherd of that day. And this is kind of what I do as a senior pastor of a local church. My job is to encourage people to restore their vertical relationship with God through Jesus Christ. Because when they get that restoration of that relationship, it always begins to work on the restoration of the horizontal one. And so because of those words by the prophet, he goes out and he begins, King Asa really purifies the nation, goes to a whole nother level. It says in verse 8, as soon as Asa heard these words, the prophecy of Azariah the son of Oded, he took courage and put away the detestable idols from all the land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the cities he had taken in the hill country of Ephraim. And he repaired the altar of the Lord that was in front of the vestibule of the house of the Lord, and he gathered all Judah and Benjamin, and so on and so forth, and he began to sacrifice. He sacrificed oxen, 700 oxen, 7,000 sheep. I mean, he just began to go deeper and deeper and deeper in the sanctification process. This is what our call is. First, we get right with God through Jesus. Then we begin to purify ourselves. What do we look at? What do we say? What are we listening to? What are we ingesting? Are we reading God's word? Are we praying? Are we fasting? Are we serving? Are we loving? Are we tithing? Little by little, you go deeper and deeper and give more and more of yourself to service to the Most High God. So King Asa did that, and as he called out to God, God revealed more areas that needed cleansing, including, and this is the big one, his family. Sometimes our biggest obstacle is our family. They knew us before we served Christ. They knew us when we did things we shouldn't. They knew us when we said and did things that were dishonorable. And maybe our family didn't serve Christ. Maybe our family brought some bad stuff in. This is what happened, verse 16. As he sanctified the nation. Even Maacah, his mother, King Asa removed from being queen mother, because she had made a detestable image of Asherah. So even his own mother, who was the queen mother, he removed from that office. because she was still worshiping another god beside the one true God, and made some kind of detestable idol or a totem pole or a carved image to a false god. And then he even cleansed it from her. And it says, verse 17, but the high places were not all taken out of Israel. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was wholly true all his days. He walked with righteousness. We can't fix all the problems of the world, but we can work on ourselves. And at the end of the day, what God looks at when you meet him is, did you do what Christ called you to do? Did you try to walk a life that was purified with Jesus? And Asa was wholly true all of his days. Verse 18, it ends, and he brought into the house of God the sacred gifts of his father, and his own sacred gifts, silver and golden vessels, and there was no more war until the 35th year of the reign of Asa. So Asa knew and reminded himself and the nation that you remove the things that take away your purity before God. You look to heaven. You go vertical first. Find out what you're doing that's not honorable or pure before God. Then go back to the horizontal. Work on yourself first. Work on the other things. And at the end of the day, if you do what is right and good and honorable, you are not responsible for Babylon. You're not responsible for the sins of the world. You are only responsible for you. So I hope that helps you today. If you liked it, hit the like button right there. Beep, hit that like button, share this video, tell a friend, and let's keep on doing the right, good, and honorable thing together as we read God's Word. Love you all. Have a great day, and see you tomorrow morning at, that's right, 7:47. See you then.